Warning: some contents may be disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. Twas the night before Krampus. 'Twas the night before Christmas, and deep in our bunker, my mom, dad, sister, and I did hunker. The street lights were dark, no carolers sang, not even the blessings of church bells rang. And beneath our beds, we all huddled tight and hoped he would pass by our house tonight. Everyone knows of jolly Saint Nick and the gifts he brings on his single night trick, and the presents and baubles and candy and toys that he brings every Christmas to good girls and boys. But it wasn't the man with the red suit and white beard whose annual Christmas visit we feared. Outside in the snow, we heard a loud howl, the crunching of ice, and an animal growl. I heard it sniff by our window pane, then a throaty laugh, and saw red eyes like flame. My sister and I both stared horrified and prayed that the creature could not get inside. But a moment later, a thundering pound turned our door to splinters all over the ground. I screamed as the creature into our home came, this horrible beast, Gus von Krampus by name. He was massively tall, at least 7 feet, from the points of his horns to his hoof-shudden feet. Across his back, what I mistook for a coat was the shaggy long hair of a filthy dead goat, and I cried and I swallowed my terrified pangs at the sight of his wickedly razor-sharp fangs. His claw-fingered hands looked ready for pain. In one was a bullwhip, the other a chain. He growled and sneered and laughed for a while. Then he pointed at us and said,
"Naughty,"
with a smile. My sister and I both shook with fear. What terrible things had we done this year? We tried to be good and thought we succeeded. We minded our manners, no punishment needed. We both made good grades. We neither one lied or cheated or stole. We had nothing to hide. But Krampus still came with his evil heart black to steal us away, stuff us in his sack, to take us away to his punishment cave, where all the bad children forever his slaves. We turned to our parents behind them to hide, but they shook their heads and sadly stepped aside. "You must face the music," my father lamented. Von Krampus then laughed, his expression demented. My sister and I hugged each other tight and prayed that someone could save us that night. And just when we gave up and all hope was gone, there came a loud clatter from out on the lawn. With a tinkle of bells, our spirits did lift. Von Krampus snarled, the air he did sniff. On the wind came the scent of holly and pine, of gingerbread cookies and holiday wine. In the doorway he stood, in a suit of bright red. "Saint Nicholas came," we cried out and said. "Save us, Saint Nicholas! There's been a mistake. We've been good all year. You can't let him take." "Hold on, not so fast." He raised his great hand. "There is something happening you don't understand. Von Krampus did come, that much is true, but the demon of Christmas did not come for you." At the demon we stared, both of us confused. He had to be here for somebody, but who? Then I started to think, and all became clear. Who'd been the naughtiest of all that year? Well, Mommy drank vodka by pitchers and glasses, and Daddy watched porn and cheated on taxes. And Mommy spent far too much time on her hair, and Daddy had something he called an affair. And Mommy spent all of my birthday money, and Daddy called Sister his own secret honey. The more that I thought, the more I understood. We children were fine, but the parents, no good. But Krampus takes children, my father protested, and Santa's face twisted toward the man he detested. Christmas time is for children and gifts to be given. You took their innocence, and that can't be forgiven. You scare them into silence, their souls you did twist. And to top it off, you told them I didn't exist. For your lifelong naughtiness, the piper must be paid, and set Krampus upon them with a dismissive wave. The adults screamed as they went into his sack, and we cried until Santa patted my back. "What's wrong?" asked St. Nicholas. "I thought you'd be happy to be rid of those people who treated you crappy." "We are," I sniffed, sincere as could be. "But what's to become of my sister and me?" St. Nicholas smiled and laughed loud and deep, as did Krampus, a sound that still haunts my sleep. "Why, you'll come with me," he said with great joy. "I have great use for a good girl and boy. You'll come to my workshop and work with my elves. I promise you will enjoy yourselves. I'll teach you my secrets, my toy-making ways, and you'll take over when I've ended my days." "But," said my sister, "what about him? Won't Krampus be lonely?" She scratched his chin. "I wish to thank him, and I know the way. I will go with him and be his protege." And so, from Kris Kringle, I learned to make toys, and my sister to torture naughty girls and boys. And every evening from that point thereafter, my dreams were full of parents' screams and my sister's laughter. And so this ends our happy Christmas story. If you're nice and not naughty, you've no need to worry. But if your heart's full of coal and you're an evil mister, try to hide, but you'll soon meet Krampus and my sister. Krampus. Each year on December 5th, a person in my hometown is brutally murdered. The police are at a loss, and with each victim, a poetic story is left behind. Below are the stories from the past 3 years. Frederick loved to smile, for he was always glad, happy, warm, and gentle, never ever sad. But Frederick had a secret, one he only knew. This man loved to strangle children. He turned them cold and blue. The townsfolk never found them, for he was very smart. Frederick took their corpses and pulled them all apart. It couldn't be young Frederick, everyone would say. He is a man of God. We always see him pray. The cold night came and Frederick rested his head, but soon he heard a scratching underneath his bed. Frederick trembled as he looked, oil lamp in hand. On his bedroom floor, the demon had a plan. "Away with you, beast! The night is dark and long. You have no business here, for I have done no wrong." Krampus only laughed as he shook his rusty chain. He hung Frederick by the neck until he writhed in pain. The links constricted, digging into skin. Frederick then cried out, paying for his sin. He begged and pleaded until his final breath. With a beautiful snap, Frederick bled to death. Krampus hung him out to dry, and all the townsfolk began to cry. But not the children, for now their souls were free, and under Frederick's body, the phantoms danced with glee. Gretel loved herself more than she could bear. She never had enough and could never ever share. Want was never more, it was only need. Her envy grew and grew, and with it came her greed. Greta needed more, but money wasn't flush, so she stole from her family. It gave her quite a rush. "It is not enough," to herself she would say. "I must have it all. There is no other way." Into her grandparents' home, Greta crept inside. They had many treasures, jewelry and gemstones pied. But when she looked about, wealth she did not find. Only ancient Krampus with something on his mind. Greta shrieked and trembled, staring at his claws. She knew there would be no mercy from this evil Santa Claus. "You shall have the riches," Krampus said with a grin, and he gave them to her after peeling off her skin. Herman was a doctor, for that's what he would say, and every single patient they would have to pay. He cut and pulled and burned, and after he was done, for more he always yearned. This surgeon was a butcher who had a taste for swine. With their bleeding flesh, he'd pair a fine red wine. The hunger took him, body, mind, and soul. Yet this evil, it never took its toll. Herman was alone, in his chair he sat. All this human meat had made him very fat. He drifted off to slumber and began to snore until an angry Krampus bursted through the door. Herman could not move. He wet himself in fright. Krampus licked his lips and let out a squeal of delight. First he gouged his eyes and Herman could not see. Then Krampus filleted his tongue. It was tender as could be. Christmas is joyous, full of love and cheer, but you must remember the one that we all fear. So be kind to one another, show love and heed this text, or Krampus will find you, and you will certainly be next. The police are seeking any information that may help bring the killer to justice, and as of this morning, 3 more bodies have been found in a neighboring village. Krampus has returned. Each year on December 5th, people in my hometown are brutally murdered. The police are at a loss. Everyone in my town lives in fear, and some refuse to leave their homes. With each victim, a poetic story is left behind. Below are the rhyming stories discovered at each respective crime scene. Johann had a secret, and he'd take it to the grave. This man loved his neighbor's daughter, and he wished to keep her as his slave. She was but only 12, not yet halfway to his age, but Johann did not falter as he built the child's cage. The night had come. It was time to claim his prize. He snuck into her bedroom, a glimmer in his eyes. But in the child's chamber, a young girl he did not take, for lurking in the shadows was Krampus, hissing like a snake. When Johann cried, the Christmas demon let out a laugh as he grabbed the evil man by his legs and pulled him right in half. And now the child sleeps in peace, snuggled in her bed, for Johann's body torn to bits have kept all the maggots fed. Wilhelm was a grocer with all the town supplies, but he was very greedy and made his prices rise. The poor could not afford it, and some began to starve, but Wilhelm only scoffed at them with plenty of meat to carve. He always made them beg for just the smallest bits of food. Their suffering made him laugh and brighten up his mood. Wilhelm sat alone, counting his money by the fire. when he heard the footsteps, quite loud and very dire. When Krampus stood before him and shook his rusty chain, Wilhelm begged and pleaded, praying for no pain. Krampus stripped him naked and hung him for a spire. The town then rejoiced, and they danced around his pyre. Summer was cold-hearted, despite her lovely name, a witch in nurse's clothing, treating the sick and lame. But for her patients she had no love, and prayed they all stayed ill. For when they slipped away she smiled, and tallied another kill. She wept with her families, pretending to be sad, yet when she went home at night, she danced like she was mad. As Summer bathed and closed her eyes, she began to dream, and Krampus crept into her room through a cloud of steam. The nurse did thrash as Krampus drowned her slow, and now her corpse is turning blue as the demon tossed her in the snow. These, along with the four more stories, were discovered on what can only be described as parchment paper with inconclusive carbon dates. The police are seeking any information that may help bring the killer to justice. After speaking with a detective assigned to the case, we have no leads or suspects. The killings appear to be unexplainable, both in nature and method of execution. It has led us to believe there is not only a supernatural element to the murders, but we have no doubt that they will continue each year. A Krampus Christmas. 'Twas the night before Christmas, when all through the house, not a creature seemed to be stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there. The children were nestled all snug in their beds, while visions of sugar plums danced in their heads. And Mama in her kerchief and I in my cap had just settled our brains for a long winter's nap, when, out on the lawn, there arose such a clatter. I sprang from my bed to see what was the matter. Away to the window, I flew like a flash, tore open the shutters, and threw up the sash. The moon on the breast of the new fallen snow gave a luster of red to objects below, when what to my wondering eyes did appear but a satin black car and 8 shadowy figures. With a little old driver so lively and quick, I knew not who he was, but he did appear sick. More rapid than eagles, his coursers they came, and he whistled and shouted and called them by name. Now lust, now gluttony, now greed and sloth, on envy, on pride, on wrath and... stopped. To the top of the porch, to the top of the wall, his speed, his creatures, over 10 feet tall. As leaves that before the wild hurricane fly, when they meet with an obstacle, mount to the sky. So up to the housetop the coursers they flew, with the car full of bones, and that old figure too. And then, in a second, I heard on the ceiling the crackling of wood and the sound of paint peeling. As I drew in my head and was turning around, down the chimney, a being who seemed to have been drowned. He was dressed all in skin from victims unknown. These clothes were cut up, showing organs and bone. A bundle of lumps he had flung on his back, and he looked like a peddler just opening his pack. His eyes, how they reddened, his dimples how black. His cheeks were like pits, his nose torn back. His droll little mouth was drawn up to a grin, and the look in his eyes showed an eager to sin. The stump of a foot he held tight in his hand, and the smoke, it came from his hair in strands. He had a skinny face and little round horns that stabbed air when he laughed like a string of rose thorns. He was beastly and lean, a sadistic-looking elf, and I stared deep into his eyes, in spite of myself. A wink of his eye and a twist of his head, and my wife, who came down, dropped down dead. He spoke not a word, but went straight to his work, and brought down the children, then turned with a jerk, and laying his finger aside of his nose, and giving a nod, up the chimney they rose. He sprang to his car, to his team gave a scream, and away they all flew, like the down of a stream. But I heard him utter, as he turned to the ice, "The world is a hard place, and nothing comes without a price." And here are the top comments for my last video. And here's the riddle for this video. Hello everyone, it's your creepy sister here. Thank you so much for watching the video. I really appreciate each and every one of you. But I would also like to thank my amazing patrons, my top tippers, and my dearest channel members. Thank you very, very much. I really appreciate it with all of my heart. If you want to support the channel further, you could also choose to become a patron, a tipper, or a channel member. But remember, it's appreciated, but never a requirement. I would also like to announce that we have merch now. The link is in the description of the video, along with all my other social media links, like my Discord server, Twitter, Instagram, and others. You can connect with me and send your stories there. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't yet, and comments are highly appreciated. And remember, your fear feeds me.